Hey YouTube, it's your girl Chic from Chic Speaks. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Welcome. Welcome. Today I wanted to listen. This is the first live of 2023. So thank you for joining. For anyone who have joined this live stream, Chic Speaks. I want to get into the updates pertaining to Bryan Kohberger. This is the first case that I'm picking up for the year 2023. Y'all, it's been a lot of moving parts. I've been trying to keep up. So I wanted to come out here and do a live and just try to piece together what's been going on and where we are thus far with this. Many of you may know, some may not know, but there has been an arrest with the case for what the media called the Idaho 4. So, just some background on that case. That case was a case where there were four college students found murdered in their home. Looks like they lived off campus in like a house. You know how a lot of students may, have separate housing, and a lot of them would just kind of gravitate together, split the rent, and just thug it out, get it how they live. So these kids were no different. It was three females and one male. But yeah, in the middle of the night, I guess it was probably the morning, technically, some fool came up in there and just knocked four of the college students off. I believe, from my understanding, there were a couple of other students in the home at the time, because it looks like it was a pretty large home. So, but it was only four of the students that were murdered. So it's been a mess. This all happened like right going into the Thanksgiving break. So what I learned is that because of that, it made it kind of more of a challenge for the police to I guess to investigate like they normally would. You know how you go around and you ask questions just to see who, if somebody's seen something. And like I said, it was going into the holiday weekend. So what I was hearing is that the police officers were like, well, it made for it to be a challenge to go and talk to a lot of the locals, in particular, like, the young people, the students, because they were in the midst of leaving to go home for I guess you would call that the fall break. That was the Thanksgiving break. So they had to wait like a whole week or more to really start asking questions of the locals in the area. This all took place in the state of Idaho. So they had to wait for these students to return back to school before they can really start probing, and saying, yo, like, tell me, what do you know about these, the victims? Have you been in her home? Have you seen any suspicious behaviors, things like that? So they kind of had to wait. And what I was learning is that a lot of times, sometimes, when you wait, it's twofold. Some people believe like, okay, right away when something happened, go in, start asking questions, because that's when someone's going to remember, like, yo, what had happened was this, that, and that. But then you got some people who are like, no, it seems like studies show that maybe when there's been some time and something, from the incident, the person can kind of get their thoughts together and start kind of having a better memory of the details of certain situations, which is why they say a lot of times, when people are being interrogated, like right away, or I don't know if you want to use the word interrogated, but when they're being questioned right after an incident, they'll say one thing and then later down the line, they'll say something else. So from what I'm hearing is that that's not abnormal for that to happen, because sometimes it takes time for the brain to really process things, and you may have a better chance of really telling or giving a true depiction of the story when time has passed. So that's what what I was learning, as it pertained to this case. But there's been some updates. The man who's been accused of the murder name is Bryan Kohberger. So he's been arrested. They have him in custody, but he's a very, I don't know what the word is, peculiar kind of guy. Some people be like, yo, I can look, he look crazy. So we can't always go off of the looks, but listen, how many times y'all done seen somebody, you be like, that fool look crazy. And I feel like, from reading comments and things, that's how people are feeling when it comes to Bryan Kohberger, and when they learn of what he did, because he's like 28. And folks, y'all, let me get his picture on the screen, because people like, yo, he a hard 28. And y'all know the non-melanated don't really age like the melanated, but even the non-melanated, like, yo, dude is a hard 28. So I'm gonna get his picture up on the screen so y'all can see as I'm talking about this man, what he looking like. But again, his name is Bryan Kohberger. The murder happened in Ohio, but it seemed like he lived in a neighboring state. And I'm talking, as I'm talking, his picture's on my thumbnail too. But I'm gonna get his picture up anyway, because I don't know if y'all can still see, but y'all, let me make sure y'all can see. Y'all drop a comment, talk to your girl, because I'm really finna kind of go into this thing, and I definitely want to fill the room, and you guys let me know what you think. But y'all, I told y'all sometimes folks be saying folks look crazy. So this is what we working with. This is Bryan right here. They saying, oh boy is 28. So like his folks are like, yo, yeah, he 28, but like he a hard 28. He looking every bit of 38, 48. So y'all let me know. But this is who they have in custody. But listen, Bryan's attorney is like, y'all got this wrong. He ain't do it. Like what's that? Shaggy said, I ain't do it. Bryan people are like, yo, he didn't do it. One of the victims' father is like, yo, I hope they picked the right guy. So let's get into, so I did my thumbnail. I talked about the attorney releasing a statement. So we're going to jump over there, and I want to get into the statement that was released by the attorney. So let me see. I want to make sure y'all good. Y'all let me know if you can't hear me. Let me know if y'all can't hear me. Okay. Let me make sure. Okay. Yeah. So y'all, let me know if you can hear me. If you cannot hear me, please let me know in the comments, because sometimes my little audio be acting funny or whatever. Y'all know how it is, or maybe you don't when you're dealing with StreamYard. But yes. So this is the let me turn this off right here and make sure. Why do these serial killers? Let me see. Let's see. Thanks for joining the live. Yvonne McGowan, you say, why do these serial killers resemble so much by the eyes? Listen, I mean, okay. Thank you. Hey, Lorraine, baby. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Just want to make sure I ain't talk to myself, because y'all, I have literally done a whole, listen, y'all, we ain't gonna talk about doing a live and it was no volume. But listen, going back to Yvonne McGowan's comment, why do serial killers resemble so much by the eyes? It's just this creepy look. I don't know if it's just what one might think is a devilish look that somebody may have, to where it's in the eyes. How many times, what they say, the eyes is the key to the soul. And sometimes I just wonder if that's what we're dealing with when you're dealing with people and then they have demons in them and they not living right. It coming through the eyes, that soul, it's coming through. Or how many times like we see someone who has a light about them, and you see the light in their eyes, babies, so I do believe that the eyes, a person's eyes, can be very telling. I think that's why, a lot of people are big on, okay, looking someone in the eye when they speak, because the eyes is the key to the soul, many believe, and it can be telling. And I think in this situation, we're looking at this man, Bryan, and it's almost like he looks like he's soulless. How many times have we heard that, where someone is soulless, or they look like they're soulless? Or, you'll hear people say, wow, did you see their eyes? They look creepy in the eyes. So I think this is definitely, a situation like that. But let's get into this article because remember I said the attorney has released a statement. So this is MSN and it says the Idaho murders update. Bryan Kohberger's attorney releases a statement. So it looks like this was yesterday. So this is the picture of the 4 students and the home that they were murdered in. So the article goes on to say Bryan Kohberger, the suspect arrested in connection with the deaths of the 4 University of Idaho students, planned to waive an extradition hearing so he can be quickly brought to Idaho to face murder charges, his defense attorney said. Kaylee let me see, her name is Goncalves. Gonkoviz, excuse me if I butchered that, but listen, your girl did her best. Madison Mogan, Zaina Kornoto, and Ethan Chapin were found dead in a rental house in Moscow on November 13th. Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD student and teaching assistant in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at Washington State University, was taken into custody early on Friday morning at his parents' home in Chestnut Hill Township, Pennsylvania, authorities said. Investigators believe that Kohberger broke in with the intent to commit murder, Bill Thompson, the prosecutors in Latah County, Idaho, said during a press conference on Friday. Kohberger's attorney, Chief Public Defender Jason Labar, plans to tell a judge in Monroe County, Pennsylvania on Tuesday that his client will waive his extradition hearing so he can be quickly transported to Idaho. Mr. Kohberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to resolving these matters as promptly as possible, Labar said in a statement, according to CNN. Kohberger is shocked a little bit, Labar added. Labar also cautioned people against passing judgment on the case until a fair trial is held. Let me see. Okay. So y'all said that man said he was shocked. Kohberger is shocked a little bit. So my thing is, if you innocent, I would think, hell, if you accused of something and you proclaiming to be innocent, I wouldn't goddamn be out, y'all. I wouldn't be shocked a little bit. I would just be shocked, like what the hell, they got it wrong. So are we also dealing with perhaps a narcissist? Because y'all know them narcissists, they can have a whole different thought process with, how they view things. They think that they're untouchable. Listen, they're like, yo, take me to Idaho. I'm ready to go ahead and clear my name. I'm confident. Like, I feel like this is a person who's like, yo, I'm so confident in whatever it is that I did or didn't do or whatever, to where I know I'm going to get cleared. So as we've seen in this article, he studied criminal justice. So like I said, I've been researching this case and I learned that he studied criminal justice, and there was also a point where he was going around interviewing, people, locals and things about like trying to get insight on the mindset of murderers, criminals, but in particular murderers, which I found that to kind of be quite disturbing. But for some, they're like, no, that's quite normal. So I want to jump over to this other article where Kohberger's, a former professor of his, is kind of speaking out in his, I guess we can say, defense, because girl was like, listen, he was a brilliant student, and the things y'all side-eyeing, that's quite, the norm. So make sure we good. This is the next article over on the New York Post. So the New York Post, they reads, accused Idaho killer Bryan Kohberger was a, quote, brilliant student, DeSalis professor claims. So they like, yo, he was the truth. He was a great student. So listen, all that y'all seeing, how he researched murders, did whatever, listen, that goes into just what contributed to him being a great student. So let's get into this article right here to see what old girl had to say about this fool. Let me go and throw that out there. Allegedly, he is the one who committed these crimes. So that's what we're going with. So let's get into this article. A former university professor, Bryan Kohberger, said the accused killer was, quote, one of my best students ever. And the then master's candidate was one of only 2 students she has recommended to a PhD program. So remember, y'all, we seen that he's like, yo, take me back to Idaho. Yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania, right? And take me back to Idaho because I feel like this man, like, yo, I studied this thing. I know that whatever I did, whatever, I'm good. Y'all ain't finna be able to put nothing on me because I put that work in. I'm confident in these skills that I got. And listen, I'm about to show y'all that y'all know nothing. Y'all ain't got nothing on me. So Michelle Boger, 33, an associate professor at DeSales University in Pennsylvania, told the Daily Mail that Kohberger, who was arrested in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, was a great writer and brilliant student. In my 10 years of teaching, I've only recommended 2 students to a PhD program, and he was one of them. He was one of the best students ever. Everyone is in shock over this, she told the outlet, adding that he was always perfectly professional with her. So listen, how many times have we done seen with these murderers to where there's people around them, or like I guess we can even go back to what Jeffrey Dahmer, like a lot of times they might even be what somebody would consider attractive or charismatic. Like they tend to, a lot of times I notice when I hear, cases dealing with like murderers or serial killers, things like that, they can camouflage kind of well within society, like to where they can kind of, did any of you guys catch that series that was on Netflix? I think that was that Jeffrey Dahmer show, and Niecy Nash played in it. She did really good. She was like the neighbor. And y'all, if y'all seen that, y'all seen how much that fool was just getting away with stuff. And much of it's because of what he looked like. But, he was very like soft spoken. He didn't per se, I guess, look creepy, like to me, he blended pretty well within society. And the real life Jeffrey Dahmer, he was considered to be like more of like an attractive white male. So I'm not surprised with these good comments that people are making about this man. I'm just saying. So the associate professor at the private Catholic university in the Center Valley, Pennsylvania, says she was stunned that her former student has been charged in this shocking crime. So I'm looking at her and I'm like, yeah, sis lucky that hell she survived. That he didn't. I'm just saying, she need to be feeling like, ooh, praise God that I was only dealing with this fool on Zoom. So, quote, I'm shocked as is that what's been accused of. I don't believe it, but I get it, Boger said. This news is upsetting. I haven't slept at all since hearing about Bryan. Says, I wouldn't be sleeping if I know I didn't came close to somebody who's been accused of such a heinous crime. Listen, my nerves would be shocked. Look, I would need all the holy water. Like, my nerves would be shocked. Let me get into these comments. Lorraine Bibby said, I saw that on Netflix. Y'all seen what I'm seeing. Look how long it took for them to bring that man down for much of those reasons that I said. It's like, y'all know when it come to us, if you say Antoine, and Antoine did it, yeah, Antoine, yeah, I can believe you did it. Clink, clink. We go ahead and taking you to the big house. And it's more of a, with us, a lot of times, guilty until proven innocent, versus with other cultural groups, non-colored cultural groups, it's innocent until guilty. Y'all see what I'm saying? And I think, that's what happens where, when they look like this man right here, or as I use the example of Jeffrey Dahmer, is innocent until proven guilty, which is the way the law should be. But y'all know it don't work that way with us. Once they see that melanated skin, it's in the reverse. And now we have to prove our innocence. Like, y'all, lately, I've been really into these court cases. I've been following a lot of court cases. Hell, I probably could start a whole channel just pertaining to, court cases, because I've been really engulfed in just the legal system, the court cases. There's I don't know if any of you are familiar with the rapper Young Thug, Young Gunna, like the RICO charges. So I'm a local here in Atlanta. So that's going on right now. So just about daily for the last couple of weeks, they've been showing I guess your pre-trial, the things that go on before you start the trial. So I'd never really gotten in tune with that before. So I'm finding it quite interesting with seeing what goes into the process before we actually see the trial. Because a lot of times when we see things televised on TV, we only see the trial. We don't see what leads up to the trial as far as when it comes to the court system. So I'm finding it quite interesting with following the case dealing with the rapper Young Thug and the RICO charges, because you see, how the lawyers from the defense and the prosecutors, the DA, how they come together, how they try to present people who they believe to be expert with. It's a lot that goes into it, even with conversations with them wanting to make sure that a jury that will be selected will not judge based on maybe how a person looks. Because remember, I say when it comes to us, it's guilty until proven innocent. And a lot of times within our communities, we I will say, we're more apt to probably have the tattoos on our face and on our neck and things like that. And you see other people, you'll see white men, women have that very same thing, but it seems like you see it more, with melanated people, with like your blacks and Hispanics, where there's the tattoos and things like that. So now when you're going in the courts and you're trying to, you have a defense attorney, trying to represent their client, and their client is sitting up here all tatted up from the rooter to the tutor. And you up here trying to say, listen, I know what you see. Listen, I know you see that big A tattoo on his left cheek, but I need you to focus on this evidence. So, I mean, I say that to say that how we look and how we're presenting ourselves in this world, it can make a big difference when it comes to certain things, and when things pop off, like when you're dealing with trying to get out of some stuff and trying to be vindicated on something. And sometimes people, it's just the way of the mind where people will judge you on how you look. And to me, I find that when you're dealing with the non-melanated, excuse me, in particular the Caucasians, their judgment on how they look is more in a positive light, because it's just like, oh, this, for example, this man I got on my screen, he's a whole PhD student. He's a white male. He don't have the tattoos. We talked about in this live, okay, his eyes, but okay, looking at his eyes, but though you take Twan over here who all tatted up on his face and his neck, you see what I'm saying? Somebody, it is what it is, are going to be more apt to be looking at Antoine side-eyed than this man right here. Now, for us melanated, we probably gonna be looking harder at this man right here, because we know what it's about. We know them ones that be doggone having people in the freezer, saving them for Thanksgiving. We know they often gonna probably look more so like what we're seeing on this screen. But that's us color folks, and how we know that what they say is usually not that one that you most suspect that's doing, it's that least suspected one. So we've come keen to know which one we need to be looking at side-eye. And we see this on the screen is more likely what we're going to look at side-eye versus that, Antoine who got the tattoos, because we know better. But the other groups, they don't necessarily see it like that. I think sometimes they might be in denial about how much they folks be out there eating up people and doing just crazy serial killer type stuff. They want to just focus on RICO charges or the gangbanging stuff, but nah. Y'all see, y'all need to be looking at Bryan right here. This is who y'all need to be looking at right here. Bryan, clean face, clean cut Bryan. Y'all need to be looking real hard at him. So here's another picture of the Idaho 4. Their faces are circled. This teacher, this professor also goes on to say, he seemed normal to me, but then again, I only knew him from teaching him online. Sis, sis, you better praise God you only knew him from teaching him online. She goes on to say, I didn't know anything personal about him. I believe he worked full time like most of our graduate students do, she said. Boger said she advised Kohberger with his thesis, which involved questioning people about their thoughts and feelings during the commission of a crime. Y'all, I'm gonna need to try to find the list of them questions that he was going around asking people, because that part right there just had me all the way shook with the questions that he was going around asking people. But listen, sis talking about, listen, ain't nothing abnormal about that. Let's go on. She says, I was one of the professors who helped Bryan with his proposal on his graduate thesis, his capstone project. He did put out a routine questionnaire for his thesis. It looks weird, I understand, from the public's view, but in criminology, it's normal, she told the Daily Mail. Normal, y'all, I'm going to try to find them questions. She goes on to say, it's a criminology theory called script theory. It's a normal theory on how and why criminals commit their crime, etc., she said. After graduating from DeSales last year, Kohberger enrolled as a doctoral student at Washington State University in Pullman, just 15 miles from Moscow. So that's where those murders took place, in Moscow. So listen, like I said, I want to try to find those questions, but before we go over there, so I don't lose track of what I came on here to do, y'all. The father of one of the victims did, speak out. So let me share my screen and show you what Pops had to say about this. Because when he came out, with who they had in custody, one of the fathers, I think Kaylee's dad, was like, okay, I can see the connection with that. So I don't know why, maybe they don't get into it in this article, but it didn't indicate at that time what the connection was that he saw. But I guess when he learned who that man was, he was like, okay, I see a connection there between him and my child. So this article, this is CBS News. Father of Idaho murder victim says he hopes police picked the right guy. So let's get into this article. Following the arrest of suspect Bryan Kohberger in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in Moscow, Idaho, investigators are combing through every aspect of his life. A possible motive has not been publicly shared yet. Quote, we're trying to build this picture now, who he is, his history, how we got to this event. Anthony Dollinger, a captain at the Moscow Police Department, told CBS News. Law enforcement sources says FBI agents tracked the 28-year-old's movement days leading up to his arrest at his parents' home in eastern Pennsylvania. It's located more than 2,500 miles from the house in Moscow. Make sure y'all can still see my screen. Okay, let me get back to where I was. Let's see where I left off there. From the house in Moscow. Okay. And from the house in Moscow, Idaho, where Kohberger is accused of fatally stabbing Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Cornoto, and Ethan Chapin while they were sleeping on November 13th. Y'all, let's talk about stop and pause there. Listen, to wake up to some food just going ham at you, I'm presuming with a knife, like that is some ish right there. Like that's a nut right there to be doing something like that, to where you done came up inside of the home, and then while these people sleeping, you just, like, I'm still wondering, okay, while he's getting, stabbing up one, how far, where were the other ones? Because I don't know that part now. If you all know, you can drop in the comments. Where were the other, let's just say 3 victims because he had to do it one at a time, right? So when you're being stabbed, like, was it happening so fast to where they didn't even get a chance to scream out? Like that part right there, I'm just trying to picture. I hear there's a documentary or something that's being worked on pertaining to this case. So I'm just trying to just in my mind just picture like how something like this can go down, because it's just one of those things when you just think of just it's just unfathomable. Like for someone to do it, and then the look or what may have been going through these kids since they were kids, their minds in their last minutes or seconds before they died. Crazy. So Goncalves' father, Steve Goncalves, says the arrest brings some relief. Quote, this is the first, let me see, this is the first bit of joy that we've had in close to 7 weeks, he said. We hope they pick the right guy, and that gives us hope, and we haven't had hope for a long time. Kohberger is a PhD criminology student at Washington State University and lived in Pullman, Washington, about a 15-minute drive from the victim's house. Because what I'm hearing, y'all, they were like, yo, after all this popped up, like he went back to his normal routine of going to class and carrying on doing his normal life stuff. Like oftentimes a lot of nuts, serial killers, whatever you want to call them, do. They'll just go back to blending into society. You know, it's just a sad truth, but that's, you know, that's what happened. I done seen and heard enough of them cases, but that's often what happens. This article also goes on to say the police haven't said if Kohberger knew the students. Law enforcement sources say forensic analysis allegedly linked him to the murders. Jason Labar, the public defender representing Kohberger in the extradition, said that about a month after the murders, his client went on a trip home to Pennsylvania with his father that was planned at the beginning of the semester. They were in a white Hyundai Elantra, the same make and model of the vehicle spotted near the scene of the murders. Quote, the police department believes that the person we have in custody, which would be Kohberger, is the one who is responsible for these crimes, Dollinger said. In a statement released by Labar on Sunday, Kohberger family said, quote, said they, quote, have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence. So listen, I mean, this is this man's family. So I'm just going to say I'm not surprised, at what they're saying as far as the comment that they have pertaining to him. What do you expect? But here's a news clip. Let's try to play this news clip and see what they're saying pertaining, see if it's anything in addition to, what we just read. So fair use. Let's get it. And guys, as you come in, I thank you. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts as I'm kind of going through these details pertaining to this case, because we do have an arrest for the Idaho 4. And right now for Bryan is not looking good for the kid, but his lawyer's like, yo, my client is ready to be extradited back to Ohio to face this head on, to prove that he is not the person that they're looking for. So let's check out this video. Fair use.
College students.
We're trying to build this picture now of
Let me see
him, who he is, his history, how we got to this.
Arrested a suspect in the murder of 4 college students. 28-year-old criminology student Bryan Kohberger was taken into custody Friday in Pennsylvania. The families of the 4 victims say the arrest brings them hope. But there are still a lot of questions. Danya Backus has more from Moscow, Idaho.
Investigators are combing through every aspect of suspect Bryan Kohberger's life as they try to piece together a possible motive in the murders of 4 University of Idaho college students.
We're trying to build this picture now of him, who he is, his history, how we got to this event.
Law enforcement sources say FBI agents tracked the 28-year-old's movements days leading up to his arrest at his parents' home in eastern Pennsylvania. It's located more than 2,500 miles from the house in Moscow, Idaho, where Kohberger is accused of stabbing Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin while they were sleeping on November 13th. Gonzalez's father says their arrest brings some relief.
This is the first bit of joy that we've had in close to 7 weeks. We hope they pick the right guy, and that gives us hope, and we haven't had hope for a long time.
Kohberger is a PhD criminology student at Washington State University and lived in Pullman, Washington, about a 15-minute drive from the victims. Police haven't found a murder weapon or said if Kohberger knew the students. Law enforcement sources say forensic analysis allegedly linked him to the murders. The public defender representing Kohberger in the extradition says about a month after the murders, his client went on a road trip home to Pennsylvania with his father that was planned at the beginning of the semester. They were in a white Hyundai Elantra. It's the same make and model of the vehicle spotted near the scene of the murders.
The police department believes that the person we have in custody, which would be Kohberger, is the one who is responsible for these crimes.
In their first statement, the family of Bryan Kohberger said they care deeply for the 4 families who have lost children. They also said they are fully cooperating with police in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence. Ed?
Danya Backus in Idaho for us. Thank you.
All right. So there you go. Like, it's the family. So you really, I know I don't really look or expect for them at this point to be saying anything other than what they're saying pertaining to the innocence of their loved one. But remember, I told y'all this food, Bryan, when he was going around, doing his study, I don't know if it was for his thesis, whatever it was, he had some questions about the thoughts of a murderer and how. So let me see if I can find that for y'all, because I seen that somewhere online and I found the questions to be quite disturbing. And to me, it made sense for, what they say, people, a lot of times, a big part of just being a college student is, studying, you're doing your research. And he was as we've seen, a professional student. I don't know if he had any other job, whatever other job, but he was definitely a serious student, because he was in, a graduate type program, expanding his education, now in a doctorate program. So he knows all about research, and anyone who has attended college, it's heavy in, research, writing papers, things like that. So when I learned about the questions and things that he was going around asking, and based off of just the response and things that he was maybe able to get from that, to me, it made sense as to, the preparedness that may go into with trying to commit such a heinous crime. So let me try to see if I can find those questions that I said that he had, that he was going around asking locals. Let me see. These questions. Questions in research. The mind of murderers. Trying to see. Let's see if we can find something. Heck, accomplice. I'm trying to figure out, because someone had it posted and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like just the, just the in-depthness, prior to that had took place. Now, as we've seen that professor was like, oh, it's not abnormal to be going around, asking such questions, about killers and the mindset of killers. But she was like, but I can understand, for the average person, why you would kind of be like, okay, that's kind of weird. Let me try to see. I'm trying to figure out in my search how to come up with best locals out people. Let me see. trying to find it. I might find it. I'll probably if I don't find it during this live, if I come across it, I might have to come back out here and present it. And let me know in the comment if any of you know what I'm talking about, where he had these questions out there, where what he was using when he was going around just doing his research, for, I guess they were saying, I guess he was doing it for a paper. But yeah, I just thought it was just quite disturbing. So let me see. Get away with murder. Y'all know when you be researching stuff, you got to come up with creative ways to try to ask what you want to get what you want. Focus out so why you want. So I'm trying to see if I can come up with it. Questions about homicide. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not finding it right now, but listen, they were out there though. Y'all might end up coming across it, but it was interesting. It was just like, I'm trying to think what were some of the questions that he had. Like, it was like, how, like, almost like, okay, how much in advance did you prepare before you did, before you committed your murder, on Idaho Murder Web Sleuth spills scary details about infiltrated Facebook groups on Idaho. Okay, so as I'm researching this, let me share this, y'all, because y'all, we're doing this in real time. Let me show you this other article I just came up with and see what comes out of this. It says Bryan Kohberger infiltrated FB groups, so I guess it's Facebook groups on Idaho murders. Web sleuth spilled scary details about the suspect. So I guess, and they say a lot of times they'll do that murders, they'll kind of follow closely like what's going on with the case, that they were involved with. So let's see what this article is saying. Moscow, Idaho, on December 30th, police made a significant development in their investigation into the stabbing death of 4 University of Idaho students who were killed in their beds about 2 months ago. The 28-year-old suspect named Bryan Kohberger, a criminology student, was detained in connection with the murders of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. Investigators are waiting for the expedition process of the suspect in Idaho, which is expected to happen this week. Internet users are trying their best to find out more information about the suspect. So it says one such post on Twitter reveals that Kohberger was reportedly active on multiple Idaho murder Facebook groups and shared his theories there. Y'all know that's a whole, he on there doggone sharing his theories. The tweets read, the whole time Bryan Kohberger had infiltrated the Idaho murder Facebook groups, talking with all of us, pretending to be a concerned citizen. He is him telling in his own words that he thinks really happened, aka admitting to what he did allegedly. In the YouTube video attached to the tweet, Kohberger allegedly reveals several gruesome details about his own murder, detailing how the suspect would have stabbed the victims and left the scene in a hurry because of the scream. Y'all, ain't that some mess? Users in the comment section of the YouTube video came out and reacted to the video. One person wrote, the way he was describing Kaylee's wounds sounded like he was very happy with his work. Effing is creepy as hell. What a sick man. He admitted he was going to kill the other 2 roommates, but because of that scream, he left out in a hurry. OMG, shaking in my boots, another ad. Someone noted, wow, he really was enjoying himself. Only the killer would have known all this information. The police wouldn't know when they were trying to run or why the girls were on top of each other. Or the killer was, say, quitting her. You had to be there to know these things, and more. So here's a tweet that somebody wrote. The whole time, hashtag Bryan Kohberger had infiltrated the Idaho murder Facebook groups, talking with all of us, pretending to be a concerned citizen. Here is him telling his own words what he thinks really happened, aka admitting to what he did allegedly. So let me see. Say something. Let me see. Quote, let's see, his literal confession, while the whole time he was keeping emphasis, he keeps emphasizing that but gives the most accurate, detailed description of his own actions that night. Now, knowing he did it is just chilling to hear him basically give a clue as to why that girl in particular was attacked so much worse than everyone else. Think about it. If she is the one who screamed and almost got away, he probably took all that anger out on her and left to not get caught. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't have had the worst of it. And the last two in the house probably wouldn't have made it out if he kept them all silent. Either way, that's a total confession right there. I'm glad they found this cycle, yet another user. Listen, so this man was on here. Listen, it's almost put me in a mindset of how a lot of times, these rappers, they go and do crazy stuff and then put it in their lyrics on their music. And then when it come back on them, they like, no, I didn't mean that. I was just playing. And now they trying to get petitions to not be able to have their lyrics be used against them in the court of law. Like a lot of times, and especially in this time of social media, a lot of these people be telling on themselves, y'all, like it's making the job of like the police officers, law enforcement, whatever, so much easier because these investigators, they just going to have access to social media and it's just going to tell the story. They just going to be able to follow the crumbs. So I feel like, a lot of people today are actually telling on themselves. And I guess that's a good thing, because it's getting them off the streets and getting them dealt with. But it's just like, wow, what kind of mindset do a person have to do something crazy and then just go out there and put it, whether it be in their music or put it on social media, and then be surprised when they're caught and when it's used against them. Again, back to that narcissistic, is that a mind of a narcissistic person to think that they can just go around doing stuff like that, speak on it, write about it, and still just be able to live their very best life and hop on into 2023. So as they say, a lot of people ain't making it into 2020. A lot of people didn't make it into 2023, and a lot of them ain't gonna make it out. Let's carry on with this article. Meanwhile, after weeks of little information being disclosed by authorities, the arrest in this troubling case gave the small town in northern Ohio a sense of comfort. However, it has also sparked questions about the suspect's possible knowledge of the victims, his activities in the days following the deaths, and the methods used by law enforcement to find him in Pennsylvania. So y'all, again, we came across some interesting stuff as I was still trying to find those questions that he had out there for his research. So I'm gonna try to find them questions for y'all because it was just a mess, just like, how do you come up with these things? And then you get these answers. And then next thing you know, these murders take what they say, the math ain't math. And in this situation, to me, the math is math, when it comes to him. Bryan Kohberger harassed women at Pennsylvania brewery. Listen, y'all, was this man a whole creep out here? Somebody listen, Bryan was doing the most. Let me tell my story. So this is from the NewYorkPost.com. Bryan Kohberger harassed women at Pennsylvania brewery report. So let's see what they saying. Let's listen to this clip right here. Fair use, guys. Again, thank you for joining. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let's get into this video right here with this news reporter and see what he had to say. Well, that ain't it. I don't know. Well, looks like that's not the video. I thought it was going to be a video pertaining to this, but no. So let's carry on with the article. Bryan Kohberger, accused of the brutally murdering 4 University of Idaho students, allegedly frightened women staffers at a Pennsylvania brewery near his hometown, according to a report. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Albrightsville in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, early Friday, more than 2,500 miles from where the students were found stabbed to death in Moscow, Idaho. Several months ago, Kohberger visited the Seven Sirens Brewery Company several times, harassing the women who worked there. Owner Jordan, I'll not say Sorelnik, 34, told NBC. Y'all, I know I messed that up, but y'all can see it. Kohberger, who usually sat alone at the bar, quote, observing and watching, stood out for his interactions with employees and patrons. Sorelnik said, the brewery, which scans everyone's ID, has a system in which staff members can add notes or comments about a patron that will pop up on a screen whenever the ID is scanned again. Sorelnik told the network. Quote, staffers put in there, hey, this guy makes creepy comments, keep an eye on him. He'll have 2 or 3 beers and then just get a little too comfortable, he said. Kohberger would ask women, staff or customers who they were at the brewery with and where they lived. Sorelnik said if the women weren't interested, quote, he would get upset with them a little bit. In one instance, Sorelnik recalled he called an employee a B, the B word, y'all see, when she declined to answer his questions. Sorelnik said he was forced to confront Kohberger during his final visit to the brewery. Quote, I went up to him and said, hey, Bryan, welcome back. We appreciate you coming back. I just wanted to talk to you real quick and make sure that you're going to be respectful this time and we're not going to have any issues. Sorelnik said he told the alleged murderer, who was stunned. Quote, he was shocked that I was saying that and said, quote, I don't know what you're talking about. You totally have me confused. Kohberger stayed for just 1 beer and then he never returned, Sorelnik said. The interactions happened months ago, Sorelnik wrote it. At the time, Kohberger likely was a student at a nearby DeSales University where he graduated in 2022. Shocked former classmates remember the accused killer as being an intelligent student in high school, but was bullied often and could in turn be a bully to others himself. They said he struggled with heroin addiction and weight loss. Y'all, I told y'all he looked like a strong 28, a hard 28. That man, they said, is 28 years old. Quote, it was bad, Kohberger's former high school classmate Sarah Healy told the Fox News Digital on Friday. Quote, there was definitely something off about him. Like, we couldn't tell exactly what it was. I remember one time when I was walking in the hallway and he stopped me and was like, do you want to hang out? So let me see. Here's a picture. I don't know, who is this man right here? Who is this? Kohberger usually sat alone at the bar observing and watching. Seven Sirens Brewing Company owner John Sorelnik said. So that looks like this might be John. This might be the owner of the brewery. But Bryan was bullied a lot, and I never got a chance to say something to defend him because he would always run away, she added. How many times we heard that? People who do crazy things, and then you learn in their, past that they definitely weren't the popular kid, that they got the business from their peers. They were odd. They were weird. They were obviously treated differently. That's very common, when you definitely hear stuff like that, when it comes to like the mass type shootings, or when you're dealing with I like a lot of the school shootings. A lot of times there are people like who are I guess millennials, people in their 20s, between the ages of 17 and 28. Like, it's like a certain age group where you'll see, where people are doing like things like this, of this type, this magnitude, where It's just very like erratic type behavior where you're like, okay, where the hell this come from? And then when you research, you learn that their background was one to where they just weren't happy people. They weren't happy people. So the article goes on to say, despite always performing well in school, she said he was often rejected and bullied by girls that she believes he may have had internalized, leading him to lash out and commit such heinous, violent crimes. Y'all, not bullied by girls. Y'all, you know, they say the girls can be harder on you than the boys, but listen, the girls was giving him the business. Another friend said that Kohberger suddenly changed in his senior year of high school when he lost a significant amount of weight. Quote, he always wanted to fight somebody. He was bullying people. We started cutting him off from our friend group because he was 100% a different person. So I don't know if he lost weight and then started feeling himself, but listen, he dropped that weight and was like, y'all, I'm here for y'all. Come with it. He changed. Kohberger had been living in Pullman, Washington at the time of the murders, about a 10-minute drive from Moscow, where he was enrolled in the University of Criminal Justice PhD program at Washington State University. They said one of Kohberger's classmates at WSU told the Post Friday that he continued his studies after the murders and was even present during a class discussion on the quadruple homicide. Like, yo, he's sitting in there just giving his thoughts and everything, just being the scholar that he was. Kohberger has been charged with the murdering of Kaylee, 21, Madison, 21, Xana, 20, and Ethan, 20, who were found stabbed to death in their off-campus home on November 30th. Let's see. Police said on Saturday they believe he likely acted alone. More information on the murders and investigations that led to Kohberger's arrest will remain sealed in a probable cause affidavit until he's extradited to Idaho, prosecutors said. Kohberger has been held without bond in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. He planned to waive his right to extradition hearing, which would expedite his move to Idaho. His lawyer, Jason Labar, the chief police defender in Monroe County, said Saturday. So, y'all, this man, listen, he had a whole history out there like they typically do, and it wasn't a good one. Like more often than not, it's not. And his stuff caught up with him. Like it caught up with him. To me, you know, his background story is much of like the story we often hear of people who do crazy things. Okay, what is this talking about? Did Bryan Kohberger call crime podcast after Idaho murder? Suspect talked of getting away with murder. So he did, y'all. He was doing the absolute most. What they say, he was feeling himself. He was just like, listen, I done it. I'm about to be engaged with these people. It's almost to me like he wanted some sense of relevancy. Like, okay, let me create a situation and then engage in conversation pertaining to it, because it seemed like people otherwise weren't trying to talk to him or interact with him. So it's like he wanted to create something that would have for people to be open to engage in dialogue with him, if that makes sense. So what I'm saying is, like, prior to him, if he did it, alleged, killing these young people, these students, he lived his life to where really nobody wasn't really checking for him or trying to really be engaged with him in conversation like that. Like, he went to class, he was the smart kid. It seemed like once people left the classroom, they forgot about him and he was just like a non-factor. But then, so he basically lived his life where it was just like, I guess it was just him, his parents, his family, whatever, and his studies, teachers. Like, nobody really messed with him like that. So it's just like, okay, I need to produce something that could make me to be interesting enough to where people want to talk with me. So what I come up with is that, okay, let me shake up some stuff in the community. Okay, let's kill some people. After that, given my knowledge and background from, my education, I can provide some insight as to what may or may not have happened. and it'll have people to be intrigued by the things that I have to say and want to continue to carry on and engage in conversations with me. That's the only thing that kind of makes sense to me as to why he, this man happened. Then he's going around and just, it's almost like he's getting attention or getting this clout that he never had before. So he was just feeling himself. Like, let's see what it's saying about the this situation with the podcast. So this person tweeted, I'm a guy who originally had this caller on the phone on my podcast, allegedly with TREV. Now everyone is saying this is the killer, but I do not know this to be fact yet. So please let everyone know. Did Bryan Kohberger call a true crime podcast after committing the crime? In the call, the alleged murderer reportedly identified himself as Dave and told the host that he lives in a college town. Told the host that, quote, lives in a college town, and I've worked with at least 10 Sigma Chi members. End of quote. The person then went on to shockingly claim that, quote, every single one of them has asked me, if you are going to kill somebody, how would you get away with it? End of quote. He further asserted, quote, I just wonder, maybe this is nothing more than some kid in the fraternity trying to prove himself, end of quote. However, when the host questioned the person on why he did not call the police instead of calling him, he began to make excuses and also contradicted his own statements. Though nothing has been confirmed yet regarding the call, a Twitter account shared that, quote, the host of the channel today has claimed he sent the call to the FBI, end of quote. The apparent host also tweeted about it as he posted, quote, I am the guy who originally had this caller on the phone, excuse me, on my podcast, end of quote, allegedly with TREV. Now everyone is saying this is the killer, but I do not know this to be a fact yet. So please let everyone know. Hashtag Idaho 4. Hashtag Idaho homicides, hashtag Idaho student suspect, hashtag Idaho suspect, hashtag Bryan Kohberger. So here's another tweet. Interesting call, allegedly from Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger calling into true crime podcast recently. The host of the channel today has claimed he sent the call to FBI. Let's see if this link will work. Fair use. Let's see if it'll let us play.
I live in a college town, and I've worked with probably at least 10 Sigma Chi members. And, the one thing that every single one of them, I feel like has asked me is, if you were going to kill somebody, how would you get away with it? And I just wonder if maybe this is nothing more than some kid in a fraternity trying to prove himself. And that was it.
So you said you worked with 5 or 6 Sigma Chi kids, and they asked you if you can kill somebody, they get away with it?
Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
Yeah. And I know that's the thing that just like maybe people say, trying to like have interesting conversation, but like just in my head, it's like it's always been these dudes that were in the fraternity. And so it makes me wonder if it's a thing that's in their like culture that they ask to see how smart you are and whatever, and what kind of answer you come up with, and someone took it too far.
Oh wow! What kind of dudes would ask you that?
Well,
that's crazy as shit, man. That's an outrageous statement, man. I mean, I'd write their names down.
Yeah, man. like, you know, I like horror movies and all that kind of stuff, and I'll watch those kind of things. But like when someone like in person says some stuff like that, it's kind of like jarring. It's like, what? Why are you saying something
Stop
like
the
that?
cap.
Yeah, that's man. Who said that to you?
Y'all listen, I think I found those. Remember I told y'all that he had the questionnaire that he was going around asking people about, as far as with you know, how they would go about, you know, doing a crime and things like that. So I think I found what I was looking for. And I'm gonna share it with you, Heavy. I'm gonna try to share my screen of what I came across with pertaining to that questionnaire. Let me see. I'm gonna text it to myself because I found it on my phone. So I'm gonna send it to myself so I can bring it up. Yeah. Okay. Listen, y'all, I know I wasn't crazy. So I want to get into that questionnaire. The questionnaire that he had. So okay. Post a survey. Okay. Y'all, so I'm just trying to bring it where I need to bring it so I can share my screen with you all. You can see what I'm talking about because it's a mess, y'all. Let me see. Let me put it here. All right. So let me share my screen. And we finna get into it. Let me see. Okay. So here we at. Bryan Christopher Kohberger posted survey on criminals to Reddit's social media page. So let's get into this. This is from heavy.com. Let's scroll down and see the parts about the survey. Okay, so look at this. See if you guys can see my screen. It says research participation needed. So this was saying in this screenshot, it's saying 7 months ago. So don't know exactly when this was posted, but it goes on to say, my name is Bryan, and I am inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included that the open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. So then it goes on to say your identity and all answers provided are completely confidential, and a link to the survey is also an anonymous link. This research has been approved by the DeSales University IRB. Participants must be 18 years of age or older. If you opt to participate, you may terminate participation at any time for any reason. So let's see in here if he has any of the questions in here. Okay, so it's saying the post now has been deleted. The study says it asks you to detail your most recent criminal offense, whether you were caught or not. And in the event that you were not charged, convicted, or incarcerated for the offense, you may still participate in this research. It also lists Kohberger as a student investigator and reads, let me see. Okay, so this is basically showing, I guess, when he had put that post out, but it's not showing those specific questions that he had put in there, because there was like some questions that I had seen out there. that he had. But like he was looking, and doing research. Like I think this man was just fascinated with death, and like I said, trying to do something that could or create something that would allow for him to become maybe an expert person to be able to speak on some things. So that's why I feel like, he was going around and, calling the podcast, getting on the social media boards, is because he wanted to be able to feel like he could engage in a conversation with something, and, and that people would be responsive to him. Because from what we're seeing historically, people wasn't paying this man no attention. Like they just found him to be kind of quite odd. So they really didn't really want any parts of him. So he's like, okay, well, I need to make people see me. And unfortunately, this is the way I believe he went about with trying to make people perhaps see him for the first time. Even though people seen him, but they wasn't seeing him how he wanted them to see him. It seemed like he wanted them to see him as someone who, I guess someone you can trust, who knew what they were talking about, someone you can respect. He wanted them to see him in that way, which it seemed like a lot of people kind of saw him as someone who was kind of odd. And a lot of times, when people identify or feel like someone's odd or creepy, they kind of just naturally want to kind of keep their distance. I think that's just like a natural behavior. And that's what, that's how he was being treated. He was being treated like the oddball, and he didn't like that, evidently. So I found another story pertaining to, again, as I talk about how people viewed him. So this article is from the New York Post, and it reads, Idaho suspect Bryan Kohberger kept low profile living at WSU housing complex. So the article goes on to say, in here, as it talks about, and I'd see him. Okay, so Justin Williams, a 34-year-old employee at WSU who lives in an adjacent building to Kohberger, told Fox News Digital that he rarely saw the alleged murderer. Quote, I'd see him go check his mail. That was it. Other than that, I've only seen him like twice the whole time. And I've lived here since July 2021, Williams said, who added he noted, quote, nothing unusual in Kohberger's behaviors. Neighbors told the news outlet the Steptoe Village building is part of the WSU housing complex, which is mostly inhabited by graduate or PhD students and is a quiet area in the typically safe city of Pullman, about a 15-minute drive across the Idaho border to Moscow, where the 4 students were slain. Anju Chua, a 28-year-old graduate student who lives just steps from Kohberger's building, said in the nearly 7 weeks since the murders, he hadn't noticed anything, quote, at all unusual in the neighbor. Quote, I didn't know about this issue. It's very quiet, very nice place to live, said Chua, who did not recognize Kohberger's photo. Quote, now I'm like, maybe I should stay home. So here's looks like pictures of police taking evidence from Kohberger's home. Sean Domgard, a 36-year-old PhD student at WSU, said the news of the arrest just a stone's throw from his home is, quote, hard to process. Quote, it's just so, like I said, a high contrast to what we're used to, end quote, said the Utah native and father of 3 young kids told Fox. Quote, it feels like it's happening far away, even though it's literally in my backyard, end quote. Kohberger has been charged with murdering of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan who were found stabbed to death in their beds in their off-campus home on November 13th. So again, like I said, this man kind of stayed kind of under the radar, but I feel like he wasn't getting the attention like that he wanted. So it's just like, he was like, yo, I'm finna create something that's going to have me to be able to kind of engage and have conversations with people and speak on something that I feel like I'm well versed in. And he felt like that was murder, and how to do it, how to plot it, how to plan, how to get away with it. That was this man right here on the screen, allegedly. So here it is, y'all. Like, that's what I've come up with. Like I said, if I do come across those questions from the questionnaire that he have, I will definitely try to, do an update to post those, because I feel like it makes for very, interesting dialogue to see, what it was that what he was wanting to learn of people. Man, yeah, it makes, it creates very interesting dialogue, and it's very sad and disturbing. So hopefully, soon he's in the process of being extradited to Idaho. So I imagine sometime this week, probably as early as possibly even tomorrow, we'll be getting some updates in the media pertaining to, I guess, arraignment, court cases, all that, conversations of bail, things like that. But as of right now, as we've seen, there is no bail set. So they're like, yo, you're going to be sitting here. So we'll see if there's any change with that. It doesn't seem like he has any previous criminal history. I mean, we've seen history of people saying he kind of was a creep, he was creepy, kind of being inappropriate, or with women at the brewery, I guess a local brewery for wherever he lives. But that's it. It looks like it hasn't come out of him having any criminal history as far as like being in the system. So I feel like, for them to have made that arrest, the investigators kind of did their due diligence and do feel comfortable that they do have the right person. And we're going to see. So you guys definitely drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Do you feel like, the police, they got it right? Do you feel like, he kind of, pretty much contributed to getting his own self caught by just doing too much, doing the absolute most, running his mouth. And yeah, that's it. So again, thank you for joining. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, drop a comment. I am going to continue to try to follow this case so I can come back with some updates to let you know how it's going, because many people are very interested in this case. It's, like I said, it's a lot of moving parts, but I feel like it is moving in the right direction. Unlike some of our other cases, in particular, the one with the Shanquilla Robinson case, I did cover that once before, but listen, that case is so all over the place. And like I said, sometimes I just feel like when it comes to people of color and things like that, things just don't be taken as seriously as it does with other groups of people. I'm just going to leave that there. So I've kind of just been like, just watching that case kind of from the sides, because I'm like, at this point, like, yo, will Shanquilla Robinson ever get justice? Were the people who did what they did to her ever like be arrested? Like, will they do time? Like the questions. So there's a lot of people out there covering that story. Yes, Lorraine, baby. Very interesting. Very interesting. I don't know if you've been watching the Shanquilla Robinson story with the young lady who died over in, was that Cabo? She was in Mexico with some friends on a trip, and she didn't return, and they did. So, yeah, there's been a lot of moving parts with her case, and I just feel like it's all over the place. And this case with the Idaho 4, I feel like it was taken serious, and that's why we're here where we're at, and I'm able to actually report on some things. I feel like when it comes to Shanquilla Robinson, it's really not much to report on. It's just still a bunch of he say she say things because it's not being taken seriously, and it's very sad. But like I said, I see this happen a lot when you're dealing with people of color. So hopefully, that will change. But as of right now, yes, Lorraine, baby, that was interesting too. Yeah, very interesting to say the least. I'm just perplexed with having a video out there and still the Cabo Six is what they've calling it. The last I knew, no arrests were made. Then there was rumored there was one arrest made because I did a video about the one arrest being made. But just right after I learned about that, then I was hearing like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't true. She wasn't arrested. So it's so all over the place to where I've kind of decided to kind of leave that one alone for now until like the media actually release confirmed information, because on my channel, I don't really like to just go off of just he say, she say. As you see, I like to go through articles and just discuss the things that are being presented to us, which is what I consider to be receipts and confirmed information. So that's kind of what I do over on my channel whenever I cover just anything pertaining to the media. That's how I roll. So until I see, the information out there to where it's like really, coming from, the media, the law enforcement, wherever, I'm just kind of choosing to not really report on that one just yet. I haven't done a deep dive as of late to see if the media has actually put out some concrete information, but there's so many bloggers who are covering it to where I don't think there's really been much that has been put out pertaining to her case. You guys can definitely let me know if there is confirmed information that's out there for her. And, I have no problem with going ahead and researching that and coming back to discuss it. But to me, it's like a circus. I look at what's going on with hers. It's just like a whole circus. I don't know if you guys remember that murder. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you want to call it murder, but you guys remember years ago. I don't know if it was maybe like 7-8 years ago, the young lady, Kanika Jenkins, that was found in the freezer, and she was at a hotel with her friends partying, and somehow, I guess she was intoxicated or whatever, and she wandered through the kitchen of the hotel and managed to make her way inside of a freezer, and then it was locked and she died. Like we still never, there was still nothing, I guess no one ever held responsible pertaining to her death. And so that was a whole situation right there. So that's, to me, what this Shanquilla Robinson story kind of gives me kind of those vibes where it can be one of those things to where we'll talk about for years and we'll just be like, whatever happened with that? And it's unfortunate because as we're seeing when it comes to the non-melanated people, that typically isn't the case. Like, we're talking about how it started, what happened in the middle, and how it ended, just as I was just covering with the Idaho 4. This is typically what happens when cases involve non-melanated people. So it is what it is, but that's all I have for you, good people. I do appreciate you for joining, and those of you who did engage, and let me know, how you were feeling about, this Idaho 4 situation. But definitely drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Also, let me know if there's any particular stories that you would like for me to cover and to take a deep dive in. So again, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you have your notification bell on so you know when I go live. Because right now, listen, I move when the spirit moves me, and I was moved to come on here today on this January 2nd, 2023, to do my first live of the year to discuss this Idaho 4 situation. But I am happy to report that they do have someone in custody. So that's all. That's a start, It's a start. We know it's at least not a cold case anymore. It's a start. They have someone in custody, because not that long ago, it was just like, okay, what are we doing? This person like literally did this in like the daylight. I would say probably like a daylight, because I think these murders took place like in the morning, like maybe in the around 9 o'clock-ish, between 9 and 11. Like, it was morning time. The sun is up then. So I'm just like, what what nut is going around doing things like this, like at this time of the morning? So again, that's just kind of me recalling the little detail about that part. So I could be wrong about that part, but still, the fact that somebody just boldly just went into someone's home and just murdered four innocent people is still beyond me, is beyond me. So this is definitely going to be an interesting trial to watch. I'm wondering if they're going to televise it. Hopefully they will. Hopefully they'll televise it so we can kind of listen to and see, the details and things that come about. I'm always interested to know how it's determined when a trial is televised versus not. Because like I said, as of late, I've been watching quite a few televised trial. I watched the one pertaining to the murder. I don't know if you all are familiar with the woman who was killed inside of her home in Texas by a police officer who was responding, kind of doing like a wellness check. Someone had called the non-emergency line to report some, I guess, questionable activity at the neighbor's house. I guess he seen the door was open and like, okay, I'm going to call the police and see if they can go do a wellness check. Well, they called the police. The two police officers responded, and the end result was one of the police officers having a knee-jerk reaction and shooting and killing the woman who lived in the home. And I can't remember the names right now, but I was watching that story. I wasn't covering it, but I was just kind of watching the trial. But that officer was found guilty and sentenced to like 11 years and some change. So he was found guilty of that for manslaughter. So I definitely agreed with that that verdict and sentence. So hopefully, we'll have with Shanquilla Robinson will receive justice as well as we're on the way to receiving for the Idaho 4 and that we received for the young woman in Texas who was shot and killed in her home by a police officer. So listen, I'm probably be coming back with y'all with an update pertaining to this and probably some other cases of things that are going on, because I always find it pretty interesting, to take a deep dive into these really high profile cases that are in the media. So this is definitely one. So drop a comment, make sure you like, subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell, and I will check you on the next broadcast. I am Chic from Chic Speaks, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.